What is up, everyone? My name is Inquisitive, and welcome back to another episode where today I'm going to be ranking every single Godzilla movie, and you guys are probably going to come at me in the comment section crapping on my tier list, but hey, that always happens in society, so I am prepared to crap on everyone's favorite childhood movie because I'm not biased on nostalgia because I've watched every film within the past 3 months, 4 months, 4 or 5 months. Every weekend I watch two a weekend, and I watch like five in the past week. But that doesn't matter. I am going to give my honest thoughts on this film, and hopefully we do not have to go down to D tier. I'm going to be nice because I'm a nice person, and I'm going to give my constructive criticism and opinion on the franchise. And we're starting with the Showa era, the original 1954 Godzilla. That is going straight into S tier without a doubt. It's a really good film. It paved the way for like a couple dozen more. It has a very strict message. It's very serious, and it has a lot of emotion involved in it. It's meant to be this passionate thing, and it's meant to talk about the destruction of nuclear warfare and the effects it has on the world. And I'm all for that. I'm all for messages in movies. I think it is a solid film and a perfect start to the franchise that inevitably is still around to this day, almost 50 years later. Raids Again, however, is going straight into C tier. I don't really remember this movie. I have some issue with it. The first is Godzilla. I know it's the second Godzilla, but she, I don't know the second Godzilla, I'm pretty sure it's a boy, is like so skinny in their design. And then Gears looks like soulless. The suits are very fast paced, and it doesn't really make sense because in the first movie the suit was incredibly slow. And even in King Kong vs. Godzilla, Godzilla is kind of slow in that film, but like, and Gears and Godzilla are like roughhousing with each other. I don't know, if I remember back to that, the criminals and everything, and the fight scene was kind of just, I was underwhelming to say the least. It just kind of feels off for some reason. I don't know. It's going in C tier. That's what's going to stay. Because I just don't remember any good things about that film. I just think it was okay. Next up is King Kong vs. Godzilla, which is again another S tier film. I have a reason for this. The first one is, well, first it's King Kong vs. Godzilla. He has lightning powers. But the plot is actually kind of interesting. How they actually did Skull Island. I actually kind of enjoyed the whole premise of it because, well, the only other version of Kong Skull Island I've seen is either the movie Kong Skull Island or like the 2005 Kong, which I've seen snippets of. And I like this. I think it's not like giant monsters everywhere. Actually, no, okay. I also like the whole idea how there's always like this photography company trying to like do big things or something, and I really enjoyed the way that they did this guy because the main actor, the main person in charge, is like really hyper and everything. The fight scenes aren't rushed. It is my favorite Godzilla suit design by far, like 100%. If you were to give this to me like a suit in any situation, I'm gonna put that on. Whether or not people are looking at me, I don't care. I just want to put that thing on. So it's going in S tier just because I personally love the movie. The characters are actually pretty good. And Mothra versus Godzilla, it's going in C tier. It's going in C tier. You can come at me with, don't believe me? Here's proof. An ancient creature worshipped by an island civilization is taken by boat to fight Godzilla, and they tumble into the sea at the end of the movie, and somehow Godzilla loses. It's the same film. The only difference between Mothra vs. Godzilla is I liked the Mothra solo movie more. I don't know why I don't like Mothra vs. Godzilla, because I know everyone loves this film. But let me just construct it down to its base problem. The first thing that I have is it's not even like a normal fight. And the people that I talk to agree with this. But Mothra kind of just kicks his head around for like a majority of the fight. He uses atomic breath. She gets like two-shotted. And then the larvae come in, and he gets camped by the larvae behind rocks. That's not a fight. He's just getting like messed around with, and they just die. And then he tumbles into the sea from two larvae, but he fought this adult Mothra. He's already lost like 3 times in this entire franchise. Look, he's died once and lost twice to like a moth. And then the entire pacing is like exactly what they did in the Mothra solo movie, and make it to where it's like, oh, we're gonna become rich, and then Mothra comes in. I enjoyed the Mothra vs. Godzilla movie more because the characters are are likable. I like the characters in the Mothra solo movie, and then somehow Godzilla just winds up just in the ground when he was, I don't know, in the ocean last time. No one saw him. No one thought it would be a good idea. I don't know. I just don't like the fight scene in this, and the movie is, although memorable, I find myself liking the solo movie a lot more so. Ghidorah the three-headed monster is going in B tier. I actually remember this film very well, and I do enjoy it. The whole human side story with the princess getting taken and everything, I think that was really cool, and I actually enjoyed the way that they did that. The only issue is that Ghidorah gets like teamed on, which is cool, and then they just say, oh, the larva died for some reason. And another thing that happened in this movie is that it's just like, oh, Ghidorah is there for a majority of the movie, and then the fight is over in like 5 seconds. What? You build this entire thing up, and they just all like die in the last 5 minutes. Don't get me wrong, I really love this film for the plot and the story. It's just the way that the fight scene goes and kind of the way they build it up at the very end in the beginning, how they just say, oh, the Mothra larva's dead. The plot is good. The only thing that's keeping me from actually enjoying this film is if the monster fights were a little bit better. Other than that, Invasion of Astro Monsters does everything that I would have wanted, and it's immediately going into A tier. Great film, great human characters, it's a great plot. Everything about this movie is likable. The only reason I don't want to put it in S tier is because I feel like it is a good movie, but it's not a fantastic movie. Okay, it is a fantastic movie. I don't know. I want to put it in S tier, but it's high A tier for now. I might change my mind towards the end. But I love the aliens in this. I love the aliens in this movie, despite the fact that they're evil. They're like really friendly and like really smart. The human characters are actually like funny and like provide a comic relief throughout the story. The whole idea that Godzilla and Rodan are actually like being controlled this time around because they were kind of good guys in the last movie, but now they're like actually like being controlled for a reason, and now they actually have a reason to fight King Ghidorah instead of them destroying him at the end of the three-headed monster. Is a pretty good thing. It's a pretty good deal. I like the movie. Characters are nice. Nothing bad to say. Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster is going into, I don't want to put it in A tier, but I'm going to be putting it into B tier. I actually really enjoy this film, and kind of like with Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, I really remember this film, and I want to put it in A tier. I know that people really don't like this film, and if this was a normal tier list, this would be towards the bottom instead of Mothra vs. Godzilla, but I just like that film. I like the soundtrack of it. I like the characters. The plot is kind of interesting. Again, Godzilla kind of just shows up somewhere because I guess the plot needs him to be somewhere. I don't really know why I like this film. I just like the film. Ebirah's cool. He doesn't appear for the rest of the series though, which is another grab I have this film. Ebirah has like his claws cut off, but somehow like other monsters like Kumunga show up, and Varan shows up, and I don't know, they could have like maybe said Ebirah was like growing his limbs back, but he could have made an appearance like Destroy All Monsters. He does make stock footage appearance in Godzilla's Revenge, which I'm going to get to, but I just think that it could have been a way better film. I just think that they could have done things at the end a little better with the fight scene, and things afterwards better with Ebirah. They also make Godzilla a simp in this movie, which I do not abide for, but he's staying in B tier because I actually really like that film. Son of Godzilla is going into C tier. I remember watching this and I thought it was a good film. Don't get me wrong. It's a good film. It's just Manila just looks so weird. And then the Kamacuruses were cool. They kind of get killed off. And then they do the whole trope of, oh, we're not going to believe you because you're the new guy or something. And then they finally show, the girl finally shows her face like, oh my god, who would have thought? Wow. And then like the girl steals his jacket and says, you're such a thief, and like you stole his stuff. Kamacuru's is cool, Kumunga's a cool kaiju. Manila kind of does things in that film. He's kind of just there to move the plot along. Godzilla, although his name is like Godzilla, he only shows up to help Manila when he really needs it. And Manila really doesn't do anything in the film. The end is pretty cool. The end is actually like really heartfelt and everything. Destroy All Monsters is going in B tier. It's going in B tier. The reason is they kind of just camp King Ghidorah. That's basically it. They also introduced this new alien race. And they're like, oh, it's the Kylax this time that are controlling King Ghidorah. And then they do this whole thing with the UFOs. And kind of do a similar thing with Astro Monster. And I really liked Destroy All Monsters. I liked Astro Monsters more because the characters are like way better written. But for Destroy All Monsters, I get it's like a really good film, and don't get me wrong, it is a good film. It's just, they make King Ghidorah so weak in that film. Like, he can hold his own against like maybe two kaiju, but then like against the whole thing is like, Then they don't even give him like a proper death scene. He kind of just crashes into the rock just to appear later on for no apparent reason, despite the fact that he's somewhere under the planet. Is there multiple King Ghidorahs? What happened to the last one? Is it the same one? I don't know because they never talk about it. I like the film. They give Ghidorah like no chance at winning. The Kylax, like the whole premise has been done to death. We've seen aliens at least twice in this film, in this franchise already, or once I mean, and they kind of just keep doing the whole alien thing. We're gonna mind control people, do all the same stuff over and over again. And I don't know, the characters in this kind of drew me on, but towards the end of the film it got way better. Godzilla's Revenge is not as bad as I thought it was gonna be, but it's going in C tier. Because I actually enjoyed this film. It was the shortest Godzilla film by far. It's like an hour and 9 minutes. It's not a bad film. The whole idea of it is kind of meh, because the whole point of it, I have a reason to actually not like this film. The whole point of it is to like defend your own battles and whatnot, and become like, defend yourself and be the bigger man. It's just that towards the end of the film, he kind of becomes the bully himself, and the kid that was with him, he kind of just goes along with the bullies and everything. Gabra sucks and he has lightning powers all of a sudden. Manila, again, he's just there to move the plot along, and Godzilla does, like, I don't know, a bit in the movie, but half of this movie is reused footage. And if it wasn't for the characters being, like, actually kind of likable, I would have put it in D tier, because half the film is reused footage, and it kind of dismantled that whole father-son relationship that we just did, like, 2 movies ago. But I think it's a good film. Godzilla vs. Ghidorah is also going in C tier. I don't have a reason to put it in C tier, it's just kind of, I don't know, it's just, people really don't like this film, and I don't really understand why. I don't understand why I don't like this film either. It's just towards the end, he kind of kills Ghidorah off, and then, you know, Ghidorah comes back to life, and then voila, Ghidorah is somehow back, and then he kills him again. And I don't really remember anything in the movie except when Ghidorah was on screen, because I guess I was supposed to remember. Besides that, they were like, oh, Ghidorah is minerals and stuff. And they say he's from this space planet. Totally won't get tired of space monsters, right? It's not like the rest of the film's monsters are from space. I don't really have a reason for not liking it. But I've seen a lot of people not actually liking the film. It's fair. Versus Gigan, I have a gripe with this film because it's going in B tier because it introduces Gigan with us. But King Ghidorah just shows up for no apparent reason. The whole Godzilla land thing, and again, aliens showing up to destroy Earth and conquer for themselves, has been done to death. In this Showa franchise already, like more so than like actual human villains, because there are few, and I mean few, that are like minor conflicts, but never major conflicts. I like this film. It introduces Gigan and brings back King Ghidorah. Another film is that half of the scenes with King Ghidorah are reused. Like there's a scene where he picks up in gears. That's the whole thing from Destroy All Monsters. They just reused that film, parts of it, for no apparent reason. You're going to see that they actually reused a lot of the scenes in the last 3 movies because they had, I don't know, they didn't have that much time. It's a good film. It could have been better. They even like reused scenes earlier in the movie, I think, or maybe that was for the Megalon movie. I don't really remember. All I know is that it introduces this guy again, and it gets a B for me. King Ghidorah shows up for no reason. The whole idea with like the monsters, like the mom monster, the homework monster, I didn't really understand that. I don't know, but it's a good film. Godzilla vs. Megalon is also going in B tier just because it introduces another original kaiju. The ancient civilization, this one is advanced, kind of like in the Atragon, so it gets a pass for me. Better characters than Godzilla vs. Gigan, better plot than Godzilla vs. Gigan. Gigan actually shows up in this film and actually has a better role in the film that he's not in because he actually becomes buddies with Megalon, like actual buddies. There's a 2v2 that's actually fair because Anguirus is kind of weak and is like defeated in like the first 4 minutes of the fight. Jet Jaguar lasts the entire thing and also introduces Jet Jaguar. The human story is actually kind of cool. I actually like Jet Jaguar use in this film. But the aliens, again, they're just taking human technology and repurposing it so it doesn't hurt the aliens. It's, again, been done to death. But I'll let it pass. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. This is the one with King Caesar in it, right? That's going in B tier. Again, I don't really have a reason why. I just think it's a good Godzilla movie. They could have combined Terror of Mechagodzilla, maybe made Mechagodzilla a little bit different. But I don't really have anything to say in this film because it's essentially a wild goose chase where it's like we're trying to run away this way, they're going this way, and they're just trying to avoid the aliens as long as possible to get to the climax of the film. Everyone's like, oh wow, Godzilla's attacking us or whatever, and then they will do prophecy after prophecy after prophecy. It's a good film, and it's just Mechagodzilla. Again, because the whole alien thing gets kind of redundant after so long, but I'll allow it because this is like the last film. Terror of Mechagodzilla, straight into A tier. Titanosaurus, awesome. Mechagodzilla, awesome. It would have been S tier if not for a few things, unless the first one is Mechagodzilla has like the exact same role. But except for the fact that it's called Terror of Mechagodzilla, Titanosaurus gets way more screen time in the last film, and it's also a 2v1 versus a 2v2, and they like show a lot of kind of graphic scenes with the robot girl, which is okay, I guess. But the whole mind control thing has been done to death again, as I've stated. I just like the film better than Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. We're done with the Showa era. These are my honest thoughts of the Showa era. Now come at me with your pitchforks because I am just going off of this and not nostalgia because I did not grow up with these films. The Heisei era. This is going to be the most controversial part of the list because everyone is like mixed on the Showa era, and I think this is a pretty accurate representation of how the movies actually kind of performed. Mothra vs. Godzilla, as you probably want me to put in A tier, but it's staying there because it's my tier list. The Return of Godzilla is going straight into C tier. Again, it's a good film. It personally wasn't for me. They throw in Super X very early on in the franchise for no apparent reason, just because they needed things to fight Godzilla. And Super X barely does anything. Majority of the film, he's hiding behind buildings and is fighting Godzilla from a distance. Godzilla looks kind of weird in this film. He has a good design. I kind of prefer some of the Showa designs more. And it's kind of your generic, he's a bad guy film. But don't get me wrong, it is a good film. I don't remember anything about this movie, except that he dies in a volcano, just for him to come back in a volcano. So, yeah, not my cup of tea. It is probably my least favorite Heisei film, which I think a lot of people can agree with. We're moving on to Godzilla vs. Biollante. Instant B tier. You have Biollante in the movie. It's good. The human character, he actually has a reason to be mad at the world because they killed his daughter. Kind of confusing with the whole other country involved in all of this, and it's kind of another wild goose chase. Biollante gets like almost two-shot in her rose form, and then she comes back in her adult form. And I think it's a really cool premise of a movie, and one of my favorite ones in this era. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Oh man, I wonder what tier it could be in. I have a legitimate reason for this. Number one, the movie is called Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, but Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah needs to understand something. King Ghidorah lasts for 3 minutes in this film, 3 or 4 minutes in this film. Not kind of Mecha King Ghidorah. Mecha King Ghidorah almost gets double the screen time as King Ghidorah. That makes absolutely no sense, and he almost gets one shot by Godzilla's atomic breath. Literally, one wing is burnt, he's done. He doesn't even touch Godzilla. He just beams him, he's completely fine. They build this entire thing up with the door rats, and somehow future things built with genetically modified can become Ghidorahs, which are this ancient race of dragon space aliens. So unless Doras are made using Ghidorah DNA, there's legitimately zero reason they could be able to become a King Ghidorah. Again, King Ghidorah kind of just dies out in like the first few minutes that he's on screen, and then it's like, oh, we're gonna go back in time to destroy Japan to ensure that we're wealthy or something. The plot is so confusing, and honestly, if it wasn't for Mecha King Ghidorah, I would have put this thing in D tier, because the whole time travel thing where they actually cause the Heisei films to happen, but they also don't cause the Heisei films to happen, but they're also trying to make Japan a superpower, and already was a superpower. It's kind of confusing. And if it wasn't for Mecha King Ghidorah, this would have sat at a solid D tier. Godzilla vs. Mothra, C tier. I like this film. I've heard Batra's theme way too many times in that film, and I just hear dun, 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 and the whole idea of the Earth having a life force and trying to create an evil Mothra to punish humanity, but the same Mothra twins are fine, even though the one in the Rebirth of Mothra trilogy burns down an entire forest just to kill a couple kids or something, just to get a pendant, but she's completely fine. We're talking about other stuff, but I think the whole Batra origin story is kind of pointless, because Mothra already doesn't serve a purpose outside of introducing Space Godzilla and to bring in the Mothra trilogy. She's kind of just there, similar to how they did in the Showa era. They find her, put her on a boat, but suddenly, oh, Batra's here. He's instantly there, and he's constantly fighting Godzilla. And then Mothra has to fight Godzilla, and then, as you know, Mothra vs. Godzilla becomes a 2v1. Godzilla has to win because it's his film. And Batra just gets destroyed, but despite the fact that they can kind of like get rebirthed or something, Batra doesn't show his face once in the rest of the film, not even mentioned. So it's sitting a C tier just because of Batra, the way they did him. He was good, don't get me wrong. It's just they could have been so much better if they just did Batra right. Maybe change his theme a little bit here and there and kind of make things different from the Showa era, even though it's like the exact same film, just with Batra. So it's sitting a C tier. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla is B tier. Would have been S tier if they used the Mechagodzilla design on the poster, but they didn't, and it's C tier. Or B tier, I mean. They introduced Rodan, awesome. They make Godzilla Jr. actually adorable versus an ugly monstrosity that deserves to be locked away. Mechagodzilla, kind of a ranger, only uses long-range attacks, which I guess is okay. It's a good film. I want to put it in A tier, but I just feel like there's better. You know what? Screw it, you're going in A tier. It's a good film. Way better than Mothra. They introduced Heisei Rodan, one of the best versions of Rodan out there. It's staying in A tier, forget what I said. Because Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla then goes into B tier. Because, well, they make Godzilla's junior design of this decent. It could be better. He's kind of chubby now, even though he was like really skinny before, and he goes back to being kind of skinny and then kind of chubby when he's an adult. It's confusing, his life cycle, but the only reason I don't like this film is because we've already had a bunch of kaiju based on Godzilla. We've had Violante, we've had Mechagodzilla, and we have Space Godzilla, and then we're going to do Ghost Godzilla. Half the film's villains, half of the show's monsters actually have to do with Godzilla. So Space Godzilla seems kind of out there, especially because we've already done the whole Godzilla cells become their own thing with Violante, and it just kind of feels like this is the second movie. He uses his spiral ray again, which is cool, but he also gets help from Mothra in this film, and he actually would have lost and kind of died if it wasn't for Mothra. So with that, it kind of feels he didn't really earn the victory, especially because Mothra helps him. Mothra, despite the fact that it's this super ultimate Mechagodzilla weapon against Godzilla, it does worse than the actual Mechagodzilla. I never understood that. Godzilla vs. Destroyer, easy S tier. You have Burning Godzilla, you have Destroyer, you have this very powerful monster that actually screws with the strongest version of Godzilla to this day. Potentially, Godzilla Earth's there. Great film, likable characters, and honestly, I don't have an issue with this film. I don't really remember it that much, but the scenes with Destroyer really caught my eye. I just really think that they could have been S+ if they did the forms better, because he has these microscopic forms, and these like trilobite forms, and these land forms, and these bigger land forms, and these flying forms, and his main form. I don't know. He also doesn't get killed by Godzilla. He gets killed by human artillery, and I don't know. It could be a little better, but it's a great film. 1998. Now, I was going to put this in B tier because of nostalgia reasons, and because we ended up getting the children's TV show called Godzilla the Series, which is way better than Singular Point. But I'm not the one to make the rules, so it's going in C tier because, well, now it's going to B tier. Screw you, it's my list. It's not a good Godzilla film, but it's a good monster film. And for an American film, it did very well. It has a great design, and if I'm putting this with the Godzilla the Series, it stays as B tier. But if you don't want to incorporate Godzilla the Series, it's C tier, potentially D tier, because it's not a Godzilla film. It's more of just a generic kaiju film, which there were plenty. But I really like this film, and the reason I'm also going to put it in some B tier is because this was a lot of people's first entrance into the Godzilla franchise, and it wasn't for Godzilla 1998, the atrocious film that people hate on for some reason. And then we have designs like Shin Godzilla coming up, Vanilla in the past, Ultima, Godzilla Earth. Apparently people just don't like this film because it's rooted in the back of their heads that they don't like this design. But then everyone's always licks Godzilla the Jr.'s feet every time they see him. But Kamada-kun is completely fine. I don't know. I never understood how they give Godzilla 1990 so much hate, but then we have these really weird designs later on. It's in B tier, including the series. Actually, the series itself is A tier, but I'm only going to judge it based on the movie. So instead of it being B tier, it's C tier, because it's just a generic monster film. Also being a generic monster film, is the Millennium era with Godzilla 19 or it's Godzilla 2000. I actually kind of like the characters in this movie. It's just that the whole again premise with aliens thing and it becomes part of Godzilla's DNA kind of feels like Space Godzilla again, Violante again, and every other alien film again. You don't actually get to see the alien race, and they become this weird blue tentacle thing. Don't get me wrong, Orga's a very good monster, but I feel like it could have been really well done if they actually had Orga fight Godzilla in his perfect form. But other than that, it's kind of just he's there, he fights Godzilla, and then voila, everything's fine. They do this whole thing where like the whole business guy is like caught up in his like war or something, and he just kills himself at the end of the movie. I guess that's cool. The human characters, the main plot is actually really cool. Again, sitting for another girl. As you'd expect, everyone is agreeing that Orga's a cool monster, but the film itself, not good. And that's the same with Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, because it's also a very confusing film in hindsight, because they have artificial black holes, and then they somehow bring the black hole thing, you know, and it brings it from the past to the future. And despite the fact that Megaguirus is very like weak in general, they last like really long with Godzilla, which I don't understand. And they also make the same suit different continuity for some reason. I don't know why they did that. The characters in this film kind of seem like they were stripped from other points in the timeline, like other Godzilla films. I guess they're trying to like prepare us for what was to come. I don't know. It's a C-tier movie. They use the same suit, different continuity. Somehow there's artificial black holes, which make absolutely no sense. And people like to think that this Godzilla is one of the strongest, but it's an artificial black hole. It's a real black hole. It doesn't have the same laws of physics, especially because if it's a real black hole, the entire world would have been destroyed when they shot it the first time. It's confusing, and more time travel again is going to be confusing. They do this whole thing where he finds an egg and he just gets rid of the egg without telling people. And they somehow have this really high-tech military base, and somehow a kid walks through and they see it. And I don't know. It's a C-tier film. Game Count, on the other hand, is straight A-tier. And the reason I'm not making it an S-tier is because, well, for one, they do the whole photography news channel thing again. It was cool the first time. But all the kaiju that are not called Mothra looks weird in this film, different than the poster. Baragon actually like lasts long by himself. Mothra really doesn't fight with Godzilla. King Ghidorah shouldn't even be called King because he's super weak and actually smaller than Godzilla. And again, Godzilla only dies because of the humans. And there's this whole thing with the World War II spirits. Just make Godzilla. It could have been very good if they did it better with the monster origins. But other than that, it's a good Godzilla movie. And Godzilla vs. against Mechagodzilla is going straight into B tier. And I'm just gonna go ahead and put Tokyo SOS in A tier because Tokyo SOS is a good film. But back to Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, it's a great film. It kind of Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. It's a good film. Don't get me wrong, but Tokyo SOS is just much better because it actually has a premise and like a thing. And another reason is like, oh, yeah, she got the general killed, but he backed up into their tank or their major cannon. How was she responsible? Like, I don't understand the whole plot where she's like, oh, she's supposed to be like down about herself and she's like, oh, responsible for everything, but she didn't do anything. She was just reversing. If a normal car, like if a tank reversed into a car, the car wouldn't like go off. He reversed into her and got sent back. If she had to reverse, it was his fault for doing it first. I don't understand that whole part where it's like, oh, you're grief-stricken, you're not important, you're also a lady, so you shouldn't be in a war setting. And it's just like, oh, everything's your fault. No, it's not. It's like the exact opposite of her fault. But the movie wants you to think that it's her fault for everything that she's ever done in her life, and that's the way the world is the way it is. And somehow they make this very outcast person who like retired, somehow in a Mechagodzilla position than other people that have trained for it. I don't know. Tokyo SOS is the exact same thing. They have Mothra in it this time, and actually like go more on the Mothra plot and make her design more fluffy, not a strange insect like they did in GMK. She ends up dying. There's two larvas again. So of course there has to be like the originals. They actually go mad, which is really cool. And they actually ended off on a very good note that both Kiryu and Godzilla have died, and the legacy of Godzilla can no longer start again because humanity has accepted their mistakes. Speaking of mistakes, this is the film that has literally zero mistakes. Zero mistakes. No mistakes in Final Wars. In fact, I would go as far to put it as the best Godzilla film of all time. Just because there's a bunch of monster action, there's a bunch of new designs. It has Kaiser Ghidorah, Gigan, it brings Zilla just to kill him off, but who cares? They have King Caesar, cool Rodan design, cool Anguirus design. We haven't seen in like freaking, like, I don't know, 50, 40-ish years. Actually, like 30, actually, like 40, 30 years. That's cool. They bring a lot of obscure guys like Adora and stuff like that into it. They also make Fumitas in like 2002 or 2003. I forgot to mention that. But yeah, flawless film. Very good. They bring the Atragon, another one of their properties, and like make it, oh, there's a bunch of Atragons and Gotangos because, well, it was getting attacked. This whole mutants thing, which they actually like accept them. The society take notes, X-Men. And it's actually a very creative film. Godzilla 2014 is absolutely B tier. The only reason I'm saying it's B tier is because, well, the filters and it's too dark all the time. They also like try and go really hard on like the Halo jump scene with promotional media, but it's like lasts like 2 minutes, and half the film is obscured by darkness. Even the scenes where you can't actually see things pretty clearly, they were way better in the theatrical release, and they were a lot brighter. And they were, again, like, they reversed and like they engineered the brightness of the theatrical release. It also had a lot of deleted scenes, which for some reason got cut for no reason, even though they were actually like good CGI'd full scenes. They just didn't want to include them for some reason. I don't understand that. It was a good film, and it's going to lead to some of the best films on the actual list. But it's a good film, obscured by darkness too much. She lets her only child go off with a random coworker, and the Mutos, although they're very, very cool, Godzilla, it's his movie. He gets absolutely no screen time, and somehow, again, these humans can walk into this highly irradiated zone and don't get caught. And for Shin Godzilla, he goes straight into S tier. Love the film. It's like 1954, but they had CGI and like a bigger budget. One of the most recognizable versions of Godzilla, not counting the MonsterVerse version. He has purple beams. You can see them on his face and mouth. I mean, you can see them on his mouth, back, tail. What's not to like? He's also very creepy, horrifying. Actually, does the whole evolution thing. And I think it's really cool for the whole Godzilla thing. And I actually like this design because it's the most abstract. It's not asymmetrical. It's not meant to be, like, it's supposed to be different. And it leaves us with a question about humanity itself. And I really like that film. Monster Planet goes in the B tier. City on the Edge is C tier. And Planet Eater is A tier. Let me explain my reasoning. Monster Planet, we didn't really know that the whole Godzilla trilogy thing was going to be a big mess because it's City on the Edge of Battle. But it was a good film. Could have been better though. They really could have expanded on the whole lore of what happened beforehand instead of just like flashbacks in a novel. Because what they show us what happening before the events of the movie is actually more interesting than what happens in the actual movie. They do this whole thing with Godzilla affiliates and like offsprings of him somehow because, well, of course you have to have offsprings of Godzilla in every version, in every freaking era. It Godzilla affiliates off, and then it was a good film. He's way too angry than he should be. Haruwa, I think that's his name. He's way too angry. The aliens come to help, but oh no, they have things that they want to do or whatever. Done that before. City on the Edge of Battle. You know what? We're putting this in freaking D. We're putting this in D tier. I can't. I actually can't. I need I'd like to take a step back, as I agree with you all. This is definitively one of the worst films in the franchise because you have Mechagodzilla, right? You have this Mechagodzilla model, right? You have this Mechagodzilla Bandai, right? You have all of these promotional media you could do, all this awesome stuff you could do, but you don't do it. And instead, you focus more time on the love story of a character that dies at the end of the film. And you also focus on this other thing called nanometal that makes the entire Mechagodzilla city and they combine with humans just for them to also die at the end of the film. When you should have been focusing on the fact that Mechagodzilla could have been fighting Godzilla Earth, and if you went to the time to make him go Scarlet Godzilla, Burning Godzilla, whatever, just to make him even more powerful, you don't make Mechagodzilla, but you make turrets and everything, and it's like, oh, yada yada yada. It can do whatever we want, so just make another Mechagodzilla. Just make it stronger. Then you have a reason for him to go Scarlet Godzilla because there's physically no reason that he should be struggling right now, but he is because of plot armor for the humans, and then voila, he's now up and running. They also mention this spiral heat ray that he uses in the novelization against a meteor. He never uses it in any of these films when this could have been your time to use it against Mechagodzilla to kill him, or you burn it down with Scarlet Godzilla, but you don't. They have Mechagodzilla, they don't use it, they have this Bandai, they're like, oh, Mechagodzilla's in this film, alright? Yeah, you're gonna be super surprised. He's a city. It's just there. You have this whole tribe thing going on where it's like, oh, we humans can't do anything because they're specially evolved or whatever. You have guns, you have no bullets. The ship outside is like does not know what's going on right now, and they're making their own vultures. They make their own technology, which makes the whole purpose of the tribal people being like better than them and like being better than them pointless. It's just meh, meh, just meh. Planet on the other hand, another great metaphor for humans about our technology and our everlasting growth to expand and how it will be our downfall. Introduces Void Ghidorah, which is by far the coolest monster and coolest version of Ghidorah, no matter what you say. He's also the strongest character in the entire franchise. Multiverse and four-dimensional. So physically, if it wasn't for plot armor of humans, he can literally 1v1 every monster from this list, all working at the same time. But if he's no dimension, he gets clapped by like Gabara. Probably not, but it's fun to think about. It's a good film. Void Ghidorah is definitely the centerpiece of this film. The XF aliens' religion, the whole thing where they get severed is kind of weird. They play very hard on religion, but it's a good film. And the best one in my personal favorite. I really actually wish they did a fourth film, introduced by Heisei, and have humanity work with Godzilla one last time, and maybe we get to see the kid of Harawa instead of Harawa just dying, and then like he has a family or something. But we can get that because obviously human characters have to die in Godzilla films because it's not a Godzilla film if someone doesn't die. King of the Monsters, one of the definitive best Godzilla movies of all time. All time. All freaking time. All freaking time, like, bro. Introduces so many original monsters. We get to see at least 3 on screen. Methuselah, Scylla, and Behemoth. Just 10 out of 10 Kaiju right there. Again, similar to Godzilla vs. Destroyer and the other S tier films, it could have been a little better if they just did one part right. That's the fact that the freaking filters are way too extreme. Antarctica's a bit too blue, but it's Antarctica, so I'll let that slide. The final part of the film was obscured by rain, darkness. It's lit up towards the end, but they could have done the whole part better. Rodan, freaking phenomenal doing barrel rolls, being on fire, being the best version of Rodan and the most loved by the fans by far. Mothra, she's cool in this film. She has to die, obviously. Great film. Thermal Godzilla claps every Godzilla on this list. I'm cutting Earth, Showa, and Heisei. And beautiful. 10 out of 10 film. Coolest version of Ghidorah. Bunch of new monsters that they're going to set up for us. And that's going to end this list off with Godzilla vs. Kong, which goes into A tier. Yeah, you thought I was going to put an S tier and you put it. No. It's a great film. The best monster action in the Monsterverse. The best. Yeah, actually, you know what? It's just the best monster of the Monsterverse. Like, you can't get any better than this. The coolest Mechagodzilla design, not gonna cure you. It's a great design, great movie, nothing wrong with it, except that the plot and the characters are completely pointless in this film. The characters don't do anything, they're just kind of there to move the plot along. The plot makes no sense whatsoever. Somehow humanity has gotten super advanced in the last 4 years. I would have accepted Mechagodzilla, but then you have these things like anti-gravity. This whole thing where like Hollow Earth is through this wormhole, like it's freaking Aquaman or something. You think it's gotta be under the ground. Like it's simple, but no, you gotta do gravity aversion and stuff. And the things that was in the concept art is so much cooler than what we got to see on screen. Seeing an Osprey crash scene, where we actually would have seen, for example, the brother actually being alive. We actually get to see, oh, there's another Mothra scene, these new crawler things that like burrow in Hollow Earth. There's a serpentine dug that's like massive. There would have been like electrical like war bats and stuff that have actually get to see like the poison, and they have like limbs and stuff like the male versions. No, because the film is called Godzilla vs. Kong, there has to be a team up at the end. We just got that generic thing. All the villain characters died at the end of the movie, despite the fact that they're probably the best villains of the Monsterverse so far. I mean, Walter, the main bad guy, he's the best bad guy so far. Everyone else is stupid. Everyone has like a dead relative. They don't ever mention it again. They're kind of just said, oh, we have a dead relative. Yeah, cool, but who asked? And then Sarazawa's son, despite the fact that he's Sarazawa's son, gets killed off immediately. And out of Wingard, although you made Godzilla walk on all fours, you also made an embarrassment for a plot. If you want me to add a single point would be B tier, because all the monster designs, the characters, the music are flawless. But again, the plot makes less sense than Godzilla vs. Kong, which literally makes no sense. This has been my video. Come rate me in the comment section, and I think this is going to be the tier list. If I could change one thing about this film, or one thing about this tier list, is that I would probably put Godzilla's Revenge in D tier just because it uses way too much footage and ruins everything previously established. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Comment with your pitchforks in the comment section below.